and I'm with Jim Cox in his home, on his porch here. So, Jim, why don't you start with where you were born and when?
Okay. I was born at Portal in 1938, and Ruth Newman, the people that own the store, they built the store, delivered me. She was the head nurse at the county hospital in Douglas till they moved out here and built the store. And there was two brothers, Gordon and George Newman, built that store together, and they were having a grand opening. And Ethel Newman, Gordon's wife, was bringing out donuts from Douglas for the grand opening, and there was another woman with her. And they crossed the railroad tracks down here at the state line, and there was an old wire spoke Studebaker car, and one of those wheels collapsed, and they turned over, and it killed that woman.
Oh.
So my mother and dad was going to help them open the store that day.
Yeah.
Well, Ruth and George had to take Ethel back to Douglas to the hospital, so my mother and dad opened the Portal store. Yeah.
So you were born in your home
Yeah.
in Portal.
Yeah.
And what, tell me some more about your family, your history of
Well,
your family.
I had two sisters older than me. They went to school there at Portal. And at that time, I can remember back when the CC camp was still going, and all the CC boys were there. And
What do you remember about the CCC?
oh, not a whole lot. I remember seeing the boys in their fatigue uniforms, and the first movie I ever saw was up there at the CCC camp. They'd have a movie once a week, and I had two, like I said, two sisters, went to school there at Portal, and my dad worked both for the WPA and the CCC. He was a blacksmith. They used all hand tools, bars and picks, and that's what he did, was keep the stuff sharp, the tools sharp. And
that was here in Portal, that he worked for the WPA or CCC, or was he somewhere else?
no, he was here.
Oh,
And then he worked 7 days a month for the county. That's how much money the county had to give him. He drove a blade out here. And that's how much money coming out of the Depression.
who were some of the people that lived here at the time when you were growing up?
Well, the Newmans
Yep.
that had the store, and Hank Duck and Colonel Pugsley. She had homesteaded over in Horseshoe Canyon. And then her brother John built the store in the house. And her other brother, Billy Pence, he lived in that house where Jensen's lived. And they were there, and there were some people that was with the CCCs that had rented houses there. There was a couple of houses, 3 houses, that right there in Portal that could be rented. And my mother's uncle, Lee English, he lived in that rock house right south of our house. Pippa lives there. And Brigham Young lived in that house where Bud Johnson lives. And Joe and Flo Carlton built that house. Brigham was, I don't know what the connection was, but he lived there. They lived up in the White Mountains. And they had a big old German Shepherd dog. We had an American Bulldog and a big brindle dog. And we all walked down to the store one evening after Dad got off work. And that dog run out as we were coming back and tackled our Bulldog, which was a mistake. And there was a well there, the hand-drawn well, and they had to go draw water out of there to get our dog to turn loose, throw water on him. And but after the CCC camp closed, there wasn't very many people. I'll bet you there wasn't. I bet there wasn't 40 registered voters in that precinct. All the homesteaders, they couldn't make it here farming, dry land farming.
Because it was too dry.
Yeah, and most of them went to California, sold out to the ranchers that stayed. And anyway, my dad held down 2 or 3 jobs and worked here on the ranch. My granddad had started this ranch with a 160-acre homestead. And my dad homesteaded, and my mother's grandpa English, homesteaded above there. And then they bought out several homesteads.
What, do you know what year the original homestead was here?
Well, he squatted here for a long time, but I've got the original patent. But they came here in 1905, back to Portal.
Yep.
At that time. Doc Adamson had the trawler place, the AVA ranch, and that was a big apple orchard, and he made cider, had that big cider press there, and he worked several men, and then up at Paradise there was the Epleys and the Sanders, and that's about all that was up there at that time. It wasn't very populated. And up Cave Creek was the Maloneys, and Jack, well, they were both characters, Jack and Emma. They were both characters.
Why do you say that?
Oh, they just were. Jack left Texas. He had $2 or $3 left after losing all his money in poker game in El Paso and went to the train station and said, put me on as far as this will take me. And he wound up in San Simon. And I think the San Simon Cattle Company was shipping cattle at the time out of the pens there at San Simon. And he got on with the San Simon. And my granddad was working for them. And Emma and her brother Bill Sanders, they were characters. And but George, he was just an old hard-headed Irishman. And he'd pick his apples and peddle them there in Douglas. And, when my oldest sister was a freshman in high school, she boarded out with the Kennedy family in Duncan and took her first year of high school in Duncan. And then my other sister was going to start in high school. We moved to Douglas and lived in there till we all got out of school. Then come back here to the ranch.
Is that why your whole family moved, so that you could go,
Yeah,
you guys could go to high school?
The whole, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the dad bought a house there in Douglas, and we went to school there then. We moved back here, and my little brother was like 5 when we moved back. I'm 12 years older than he is, and so he went to school at Portal to Sally Richards. And
Now, when you were his age, did you go to school at Portal?
no, I never went to school at Portal.
Oh, okay.
I went to school in Douglas. Well, it wasn't too many years after we moved back here that Shirley and I got married and moved into the house at Portal. And there was very, very few. None of these houses that you see today were here.
What year did you get married, the two of them?
In 58, we moved back in like 56, something like that.
Okay.
And moved back here to the ranch. And my grandmother had died, and not too long after we moved back, my granddad died.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I see. So you, when you got married, that's when you moved, you and your wife, to
into
Portal.
Portal, yeah.
What were you doing for a living then? How were you making?
Just working here on the ranch and working around on different ranches. There was no work. There was no work. I worked up there on the Z-Bar-T. Colomars had that at the time, where Richards have it now. I worked up there quite a bit and helped Fred Darnell over here quite a bit. The reason they usually hire extra help or day workers is when they're gathering the cattle and working the cattle, branding the calves, and selling the calves that they're going to sell. You're working the cattle.
And what other things did you do as far as working on the ranch?
That was mainly it. There wasn't nothing. There was no jobs here.
Yeah.
When they built that smelter at Plias, that was a big boon for the people that were still working here.
Do you know about what year that was?
Late 60s, I'd say.
Uh-huh. But did you ever go over there and work?
No,
No.
and I worked over there.
Yeah. So, how long did you live in the house in Portal? And tell me about.
Oh, we lived there a couple of years, and my dad had got dust emphysema and heart trouble, and the doctor told him to go to a lower damper climate. So we wound up in, they sold this place and bought a place in Missouri. And my wife and I went down there. We were down there for 15 years and came back here. And I went to work over at west of Stanfield, the Red River Land and Cattle Company. And then from there I went over to Raleigh, California for a couple of years and fried over there.
And you decided you'd had enough of that, and you came back here to.
Yeah, well, I worked up for a ranch up there by Baghdad, and we wound up back here.
What year did you come back then from, I guess, California?
We came back in 80.
Okay.
We had gone back to Missouri and spent some time down there. That's where our son got killed, was in Missouri.
No, sorry. The times when you left the area, were you always thinking of coming back? Did you miss the area?
Yeah, oh yeah, that's why we never sold the house at Portal. We never sold it.
Because your plan was to come
Yeah,
back.
eventually, yeah.
Why did you want to come back? Instead of just, other people might have just left it behind and said there's not work, but there's something that drew you back here.
Just home. We always called it home.
Yeah.
This is home.
That, I get that. This is home, it's always been home and always will be home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that. You had some memories, I think, or maybe you could tell me some things about rodeo when you were first growing up here, way back in time.
Well, we shipped our cattle out of rodeo on the railroad. At that time there was a railroad, and it seemed like the train was always late, but it'd have, maybe it was a whole train of cattle cars, and it had stopped in Hatchita and Plias and Animas and putting on cattle, different ranches, shipping the same day. And but it seemed like it always got here about dark or after dark. And what we did, we would drive the cows and calves to rodeo and cut the calves off and ship them. And then they called cows. Well, we got the cows now. You got to bring them back home.
And the reason you did it, because I'm not because the calves would follow the cows, I assume. Right?
Well, the calf was gone on the train by now.
Yeah.
And of course the old cows didn't want to leave because
Right.
that's where their calves were.
Right.
So had to bring the cows home.
And was this after dark then?
Oh yeah, usually after dark before we get started home.
And how long would it take you? I mean, I guess it'd be different.
Well, yeah, they didn't want to come.
Yeah.
Oh, it'd take about 3 hours, probably,
Yeah.
to get them to. We could turn them in down about a mile down that way.
Yeah.
Turn them in that gate down there. And we had a place there at just this side of Rodeo on the state line and the Gin Road. That from there north. And sometimes we'd take the cattle from here down there and leave them a week or two. Then it was just a real short morning drive into Rodeo.
Why were you shipping the calves and not the older ones?
Well, that's what was going at the time.
Okay.
I guess the feedlots, that's what they were wanting.
Did you know where they shipped them to? Would they go to?
Ours went to the Union Stockyards in Los Angeles.
Really?
Yeah. My granddad had a friend that had a commission company there at the yards in L.A.
I was thinking you were going to tell me Texas, you know, but
No,
no.
if anything went that way, it would go to Kansas City probably,
Wow.
or Chicago.
And did you have to drive them down to Rodeo? Was that a once a year thing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so you would make, if I understand it right, the ranch would make almost all of its money once a year from getting paid for the once a year. That's right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Wow.
One paycheck.
Yeah. One paycheck and you have to live on it all
Yeah,
year.
you got, plus you got to upkeep on one of these places.
Yeah, like fencing's the first thing I think of.
This was a rawhide and baling wire outfit. I learned how to fix stuff with baling wire and rawhide.
Yeah. To repair things.
Yeah,
Yeah. What kind of equipment did you have to
we didn't
have any?
nothing. Didn't have nothing.
Yeah.
I thought I was telling somebody the other day, these gooseneck trailers you see going down the road with horses in them. We didn't have nothing like that. If you had to go somewhere, you had to leave early, horseback.
Yeah, ride there.
Yeah.
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 Did you get any supplies from the train? I mean, did you ever have things shipped to get to the ranch?
We didn't. My granddad did. When they were building the house, he had ordered a wagon load of lumber. And he went down to Rodeo to get that lumber. And on the way back, he had a young team, and they stampeded and run away. Well, and scattered that load of lumber.
Oh. Oh.
So when they got home, he turned them around and took them back, picked up, no, he run them back to Rodeo and then picked the lumber up coming back home. They didn't run away no more.
Was it when you think back of this time being on a ranch, was it a really hard life, but a good life? Or how would you describe it?
I don't call it a hard life. You were busy.
Right.
You were busy,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't call it. Yeah, there was a fly called a blowfly that would lay eggs in the calves' navels when they were born, or in a cut on the cow or whatever, and made screw worms. Well, you had to doctor every day during that season. Had to doctor them calves. We rode every day. You carried your medicine. There was Peerless, came in a bottle, I think it was chloroform. And then there was Smear 62 and another Smear EQ 365.
What did you do with it?
You put it directly, it was thick. That Peerless was thin, but the smears were thick. And maybe put a piece of cotton, rake out what you could, the eggs or worms. Put a piece of cotton in there, put the smear over it, kill the worms.
And if you didn't do it, what would that
Oh,
happen?
they'd eventually kill the critter. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's a tough.
That was one thing the government did that was a good thing. They irradiated male flies, blowflies, and they put them in a little square box and dropped them out of airplanes. So those male flies were sterile.
Yeah.
Pretty soon.
And eventually that got rid of
Yes, it did. I had a friend that out of high school, that was his job, dropping those boxes. And he stayed on with the agriculture department and was in that Murrow building when it blew up.
in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what did you do for your food? Because you didn't run to the store. Did you grow it here? Did you...
Oh, we always had we called it the McCarty Place down on the state line. There was a real good garden spot and well down there. And we always grew a good garden. And my grandmother had ducks down there. And she'd go down there, get those ducks and hold them under her arm, take those feathers off, that down, and make pillows.
Make what?
Pillows.
Oh.
And, but we had a good garden and had our own beef. We butchered our own beef.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
my granddad, a lot of times we'd butcher beef, and the next day after we'd let it hang and cool all night and rip it down and quarter it the next day. And my granddad would take a quarter and take home and go sell it or give it to some needy family around here. And,
How about water? Since it's so dry, where did you get your water for?
yeah, that was a problem. We had one well here and another one down close to the state line. And I don't know how many dirt tanks we had. And they'd fill with rainwater. And it would usually rain enough to keep water out in those tanks. And in the 50s, we had a bad drought. And there was no water. And I hauled water up to the foot of the mountain up there. We had some dry grass up on the mountain. And I hauled water up there every day for 9 months. We had a trailer with a tank on it and put it with a pickup.
Did families on the ranches, did they ever get together, socialize, entertainment?
Most of our socializing was dance. We had dances.
Tell me about those.
Well, Newman's store, back where that dining room is, they've partitioned it off. That was a dance hall.
I never heard that.
They had a Wurlitzer jukebox.
Okay.
Wurlitzer jukebox. And had dances down here at the tavern. Over at Animas, the American Legion Hall, that had dances there about once a month. There was a woman in Benson that had a band, Pug Scott, and her husband and a couple more, and they would play for dances around here. And
were there dances with musicians in Portal ever? And where did they do it if they did?
oh yeah, here's something very few people know. That concrete slab there by the library was built to have dances on.
Right next to the post office.
Right next to the post office.
Tell me about that.
That's Laverne's Pavilion. And we built that to hold dances on, to get money, to buy a air compressor, to dig graves at Paradise.
Never heard that.
No.
So you guys poured the concrete, and then did local people play music, or you
No,
raise
that
them?
was, there was a guy in Douglas, Joe Diffie. He had a band. He'd play out here. And there were several bands around.
Did you go up there with your wife?
To the dances?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like how often did you go to dances?
Well, every time, almost every Saturday night, from Elfrida to Hatchita, somewhere would be a dance, and we'd go to it.
Now, was there drinking going on too?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
A few beers, or?
No, mainly some hard stuff, and always a few fights. But that was our entertainment.
Yeah. And so did you get enough money to get a compressor
Yeah,
to dig the grave?
That's before backhoes.
Right.
And those graves had to be blasted at Paradise.
Were you ever part of that?
Oh, yeah. That's the men in the community would pitch in and dig the grave.
So everybody would just pitch in and help?
Well, that'd be 7 or 8 people. Bill Sanders from Paradise, he was, the powder monkey. Bill was an old hard rock miner. And Oscar Alney, they lived there at Portal. They were living there when Shirley and I got married. Laverne was a page from up in Whitetail, and her and Oscar were living there, and she had the post office, and Oscar was an old hard rock miner, so we had 2 experienced powder monkeys on those graves. Digging the graves at Paradise, we had to blast them, had to shoot them, and we had 2 good powder monkeys Bill Sanders and Oscar Olney. And, but we was having to drill the holes for the powder by hand with a hammer and a piece of drill steel. And I forgot about 10 holes per shot. And a lot of times it'd take 2 shots to do it. So that was a lot of,
Handwork.
yeah,
Yeah, pounding.
yeah. And of course the old hard rock miners, they were used to it, but the rest of us weren't.
Yeah.
And it was hard work. Then after you blasted, you'd have to get in there and shovel it out. And hopefully all the shots would go off.
Was that if they didn't, could
There
that
was
be?
a live round in there.
What did you do then?
We had to be very careful.
Yeah.
Whoever was shoveling had to be very careful. But the powder monkey would cut a notch for each shot on the fuse and light it, and then use, when that would come out that cut, he'd light that shot.
Yeah.
So, and then you counted them when they went off.
Yeah.
Bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
And
I hope nobody got hurt.
I never knew of anybody getting, I've been in there with a live round. I've been in the grave with a live round. As far as I know, Bill Sanders and Oscar Olney shipped the last ore that was mined at Paradise. They shipped a carload of lead about 1956 to El Paso to the smelter.
They would somehow get it down to.
Haul it down there to Rodeo in a truck
Oh,
with shovels.
and
People worked hard.
yeah.
People worked hard.
You remember any of the old timers buried up there at Paradise that maybe you helped dig a grave, or any
Oh, yeah.
stories of?
Yeah. Jack Delaney, the first Thanksgiving after Shirley and I was married, Jack Delaney lived down in the valley there, and we dug his grave on Thanksgiving Day. My family's buried down here at Rodeo. There's 4 generations of us now in Rodeo. My grandmother's sister and her husband, her name was Sibby, and his name was Andrew Prather. And they built where the store is now.
In Rodeo?
Yeah. And they built a hotel next to that, where the storage unit is. There was a hotel there. And then they had the store across the street, and then their house, that big gyp-block house, was their house. And my grandmother, my great-grandmother, had a hotel previous to that they call Grandma English's Hotel. And the railroaders, there was several railroaders kept rooms rented there. Well, Rodeo was pretty big at one time.
Tell me about it.
There was a button. Arizona went dry before Prohibition. Arizona went dry. So it was big on bootlegging. Well, here's rodeo right here. It's still wet. And there was a bunch of saloons. And they would run special trains on the weekends from Douglas.
To come up to the,
Yeah, party.
yeah, party, and then you could stay at the hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that sort of the heyday of rodeo, was that?
Yeah, there was the homesteaders that were still here. And,
Like Sally Richards' family.
well, practically everybody started with a homestead. Sally was a Darnell, and they had a place down here on the state line. Of course, there's a lot of them moved on and went to California. That was the big thing at that time.
Why was that?
California was the land of milk and honey. And in the Dust Bowl in the 30s, between the Depression and the Dust Bowl, there was a lot of people went through here going to California. I know a lot of times they'd sell some of their belongings to get enough gas to go on. They'd have an old Model A or Model T with all their belongings tied on.